Hey guys, we're live. I'm Jeff with Ebayaddicts, and today my guest is Side Hustle Experiment. John, how are you doing today, man?
Good. How are you, Jeff?
Good, awesome. Thanks for coming on and hanging out with us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience. Tell everybody where you're from and what you do.
Sure. My name is John Mascarello, Side Hustle Experiment on Instagram. I am from Pennsylvania, originally from Long Island, and I mainly sell books and media on Amazon and eBay.
Okay, awesome. So John, I've been following you on Instagram. I think I saw your post. This might have been a couple weeks ago or a month or so ago when you had got this new warehouse, and I had no idea you had a YouTube channel till recently. I just happened to come across it. I was either checking out your Instagram page or somehow or another, I came across you on YouTube, and I was like, man, I got to get a hold of this guy, John, and get him on the channel, man.
That's
So
I literally just started the YouTube channel. I challenged myself in, what are we in May? So April, to do a video a day. I think I skipped one day because I had like a really bad allergy attack that day. But yeah, I really like it. So I've started to get like good feedback. Hopefully people find it valuable. Just trying to help out. A lot of people have helped me throughout this process.
yeah. So what kind of like convinced you to start a YouTube channel? Because it was almost like brand new out of the clear blue. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Side Hustle Experiment has a YouTube channel. Like, we got to check this out. So talk to me about how that came to be.
So I had a blog and it was just too much for me. Like there's just a lot going on right now. Like I only have two part-time people helping me out. So like it's really just me. And like I wanted to create content and like it just takes a long time to do it. And I was actually reading a book that Russell Brunson came out with. And he said like you have to commit to something you could do every day. And he's like, he created a podcast on his way to work. And I was like, oh, what if I created like YouTube videos on my way home from work or like something where like I have to be in the car, like I can't really be doing anything else, but like I could like talk or like whatever, like obviously I'm paying attention. But I was just like, let me give it a shot. Like I'm going to do it for 30 days, see how I like it. And I really like it. So now like sometimes like I do it at the warehouse, like I'll do like a video at home on the weekend, but like, yeah, it's like super raw. Like I don't edit anything. Not yet anyway, but yeah, I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Sometimes I shoot videos in the car as well. If you check some older videos, it's like me sitting in the car shooting a video. I'm like, let's go. So yeah, I can definitely relate. And I don't, ain't nobody got time to sit down and be editing videos. We got work to do, right? So
Yeah, that's kind of how I look at it. Like, as long as the content's valuable, I mean, and
yeah.
like whatever, like the people who like it will like it, and the people who don't, like, guess won't watch it anymore. I don't know.
All right. So John, talk to me, man, because first thing I think I came across you on Instagram when you first ended up leasing this warehouse. So tell me about this warehouse that you just got recently. How big is the place, and what is exactly that you use it for? Kind of explain and elaborate, because most of the people on my channel they sell on eBay mainly. There's not, I mean, we probably have a handful of people that sell on Amazon, but the most of my audience are eBay sellers. So kind of walk me through this whole process of how this came to be, because it's not like you don't just show up and like 2 weeks later, hey, I signed a lease about this warehouse. Like, you've been at this for a while, correct? Talk to me about how this came to be.
Yeah, so I have been doing Amazon for probably almost 3 years now. I quit my full-time job a little over a year ago. I was working out of two storage units, two 10 by 30 storage units. And when you do bulk books, it's very challenging to do at a storage unit. You're getting 12 pallets of books, or for those who don't know what a Gaylord is, it's basically like a huge box. It's like 48 by 40 by 48. Basically, think of like what watermelons would be in like a grocery store. That's like the Gaylord box, and it's full of books.
Right.
And basically, it's crazy like to coordinate at a storage unit. It's like you get a delivery, you go through everything, you got to box everything up, you got to take it home. I would take it to my apartment, unload it in my apartment. Like I had a little small office there, and then I'd like do all the listing, then like bring it out. Like the UPS guy would be like really pissed because like there'd be like 20 boxes, like 40-pound boxes for him to take, like up and down these stairs. And then I have to get someone to remove it. And what happens is if like one of those people, delivery or removal, like have to reschedule, like the whole thing gets shifted around. And you're also limited on space. Like you'd only do 12-ish at a time. So basically that was like the next step for me. Like luckily, like I'm pretty good with money. So a lot of what happened, like a lot gets invested back into the business. I don't have a crazy lifestyle. So yeah, it was the next logical step for me to get more space. It allows me also to monetize more for stuff like eBay, right? There's only so much space in my home office, right? You can only list the best stuff at that point because like there's only so much space. And my girlfriend is nice enough to give me that office. So like no stuff outside of the office for storage. So had to upgrade it. And so the new warehouse is 3,400 square feet. It's a 5-bay garage door. It was, the landlord was using it as like, he used to store his classic cars here. It's like a really nice place. Like everything's really new. And the upstairs has like shelving that's bolted to this, the floor. So now like all the eBay stuff is stored up there. And yeah, it's been really great. It's been a huge game changer.
Okay. Now, so you said this warehouse is about 3,400 square feet. So you got a 5-bay door. You could basically back up a truck in there and unload pallets. Because when I saw you on Instagram, I kind of get excited because I see some people when they see big Gaylords and merchandise and they see a big warehouse, they don't get excited, but I do because I was looking at it and I was like, way to go, because I know what the value of some of this merchandise is. When you're like dumping a whole Gaylord of merchandise on this pallet, like not every one of them are winners, but a lot of them are. So kind of talk me through how this process works a little bit, because like I said, not everybody that watches our channel is an Amazon seller. So kind of explain how this process works. So you get a big pallet, a big Gaylord of books, and then what happens from that point on? Because you kind of got to scan them with the barcodes and kind of see which ones are valuable to resell and which ones aren't. And then kind of walk me through that process a little bit.
Sure. So basically we get anywhere from 10 to 12 at a time. It really just depends on what the supplier kind of was able to collect that week. And we also have one or two other suppliers that we work with. But basically they come in. We have what they call, I can't think of it right now. It's not a dumper, but basically like you wheel the pallet on it and then it tilts it onto a big wooden table. And then we have a computer there and a scanner, and we have software set up. And so basically we'll scan the books with a barcode scanner. And basically it's set up. So I have like triggers set up for what I want. So we do merchant fulfilled, which means like if it sells on Amazon, I have to send it. Based on Amazon's new rules changes, we're doing more merchant fulfilled. We do FBA, which means we send it to Amazon. And then if someone buys it, Amazon fulfills it. We work with buyback companies, so we work with sell back your book. So there's a lot of stuff that's not valuable for Amazon, but they're willing to pay like anywhere from like 10 to 18 cents for it. So we'll fill up the Gaylord for them. And now we're working with another buyback company called Zifit, I think it's called. And they're kind of like the same, where they'll pay a decent amount for the books. And then we sort out kids' books because we have a buyer for kids' books. And yeah, all the winners go in a cart. Then we wheel them to a table. And that's kind of where they'll get conditioned. So we'll go through it, make sure it looks like it's in good shape. No highlighting, no underlining, stuff like that. If it does have that on the book, like we'll put it aside and list it differently. And right now we have a lister. They work from home. So the books get boxed up, dropped to her house, and then she'll list all the books, and then UPS picks it up at her house. So we just
okay. So I kind of want to hit the pause button for 1 second, because I know somebody's going to leave a comment and be asking about this. So when you dump the books onto this big sorter, okay, what triggers are you looking for? Is there a certain rank? Is there a profit margin? Do you say I want to make at least $5 profit per item that we send into like Amazon FBA or merchant fulfilled? Or do you just say, hey, I'm just cool with $1? Like, what is like the sales rank? What is like the sales velocity? What is the profit margin you're looking at when you're deciding? It's like, okay, this book goes into like the dud pile and this goes into the resale pile. Like, can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because, like I said, just in case somebody is unfamiliar with way things work on Amazon.
Yeah, of course. So when you do bulk books, it's very different than if you're going to a thrift store, right? So when you're going to a thrift store, you scan and it comes up positive. Like you can make a decision like what you want. But when you do bulk, like you've already bought all the books. So like it's to your advantage to like send in as much as you possibly can. So it really depends. So like on something that's ranked like 50K, we'll take like 50 cents because like we know as soon as it gets to Amazon, it's going to sell. A lot also comes down to condition. So if it's like not in that great a condition, we're going to give it to like a buyback company or just someone who picks up our duds. But yeah, we're looking probably. It has changed because Amazon made a big announcement about a week or two ago. They're restricting how much storage people have because they're not a storage. They want to like sell through stuff. So that hurts a lot of books and media sellers because our stuff doesn't sell as quickly. So now we're trying to send in pretty much stuff like under like 500,000, 750 max that has like an E score, which means that it has sold that many times in 6 months of about 12 to 15. It really just depends on size and weight too. Like a small book like this versus a big book like this, like the profits is like they could sell for the exact same price, but in one scenario you'll make like $3, in the other scenario you'll make like 50 cents. So yeah, we basically go based on that. And for me personally, if the buyback company, if I could make $1 on Amazon, but the buyback company is offering 75 cents, I'll give it to the buyback company because that's guaranteed money. By the time it gets to Amazon, gets checked in, like that 25 cents can already be like knocked down. Like, so I like to take a lot of like guaranteed money. And then the other portion, which I forgot to mention before, is we also put stuff aside for eBay. So we're looking for like very rare and old books, sets, really anything. Like we find Nintendo systems, all sorts of stuff in Gaylords.
Yeah, and so what John is saying is when he's saying that the money could go down, what happens is while those products, when you ship them into Amazon FBA, they charge you a fee. So if that item sits there for 3 months, 6 months, or whatever, they charge him a storage fee for that item sitting on the shelf. So what he's saying is if he can get cash in his pocket right this very second, as opposed to sitting in the book, and then maybe it'll sell in 6 weeks or 6 months from now, he'd rather take the cash right then and there. So just trying to elaborate a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And you also sell DVD and media as well. Is that correct?
I do.
So kind of explain, I mean, a similar process. I mean, I have a whole bunch of media. That's my specialty. I sell on eBay is I have a bunch of media. I have right now about 6,200 items that are mainly like DVDs, Blu-rays, video games, media on eBay right now. And I'm trying to scale it to 10,000 by the end of the year. Yeah. So kind of when you're looking at media and you get a big palette, like what is it that you're looking for? Are you looking for stuff that's new in the shrink wrap? Do you scan it, look at the sales rank? Do you look at the sales velocity? Do you look at your profit margin? Like, what is it that you're looking at when you look at these media items? Because you sell
media. Good.
No, I was going to say you sell CDs, DVDs. Like, what's in these media palettes, and how do you go about sorting them and figuring out what's profitable and what's not?
So most of the media that we get comes from the books. So a lot of it's just mixed in together. It's a similar process for the books. Like we're looking if it's going to sell fast. Like we'll take $1. Media, we're a little bit more particular because we just sell used. Even if it looks new or it's shrink wrapped, when you sell on Amazon, you could, but you should not list something new if you don't have a receipt from like a valid retailer or wholesaler, because then you could get in a lot of trouble for that. So yeah, with that, we're looking at like condition. We're probably a little more stringent when it comes to DVDs and CDs. Because for that stuff, like I think people play it more than once. So we want to kind of minimize like returns or complaints. So we're looking more upwards of like probably $1.50, $2, maybe $1 max. Sometimes we have to replace the CD case on something, or the disc is really scratched. We'll just get rid of it at that point. But also now we have someone who it took a while to find this person, but they basically run flea markets, and now they're buying the DVDs by the Gaylord. So everything we can't use for Amazon, he'll buy, and he'll pay like $400 a Gaylord, which is insane. And it's like super like great. So we're grateful for that. But yeah, it's the same process. We have a separate Amazon account for that. Just because like when I first started, I actually haven't had any issues. But when people said like, oh, people might like complain it's counterfeit, it's it's a bootleg. So if that did happen, I didn't want it to take out the main account. So I was like, I'm just going to start a secondary account. It's a little more time consuming, but it helps me sleep better at night. So it's super worth it.
Yeah. What John is talking about, in case you guys don't know what he's saying, is that some of these items, I don't have any media items right in front of me, but let's say he had this audio book and it was new in the shrink wrap, and he sent it into Amazon as new. A customer could buy it, and then when they get to their house, say, hey, this wasn't new in the shrink wrap or whatever. And then they could open up a claim and say this was like falsely advertised, just the same way they do on eBay. They'll say, hey, this item is not as described item, and he doesn't want to have like an open case on his account and his account get penalized because the item may be brand new. And if something happens, if someone buys it off Amazon and they're expecting it to be in pristine condition and there's any little knick-knack, anything wrong with it, they'll say, oh, this isn't considered new condition, and then they will flag his account and you can get penalized for it. So that's why you're saying even if it is brand new in the shrink wrap, you'll still list it as used, just so that way you're covered on your end in case someone tries to open up a case and say it wasn't. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, Amazon always sides with the customer. eBay is a lot more flexible. I mean, I've had some like wins with some like not so great customers on eBay. eBay was always great and sided with me. And like, if you do the right thing and like, obviously you have account metrics and they're all good, but Amazon's much harder. You just really, I mean, you can call Amazon support on the phone, but like, it's not like when you talk to eBay. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I've heard of people that have their account suspended or restricted, and there's no phone call, there's no warning. It was just like you log in your account and like, hey, your account's been shut down. So can we talk a little bit, if you don't mind? I don't want to step on your toes, but can you talk a little bit about dollars and cents? Because I think that gets people much more excited than hearing about some old dusty book. So let's say if you bought a pallet, let's say a Gaylord of books or of merchandise, what would the typical Gaylord of merchandise cost you? Like, what is your buy cost, and what is your typical sell cost that you can make potential profit on one of these big Gaylords?
So when it comes to, this is hard to answer because like you deal a lot of times with like potential profit. So like, right, just because you send it to Amazon doesn't mean it sells. But I would say 80% of the stuff does sell. So typically 10 to 12 Gaylords, I pay 5 cents a pound. It will typically be around, call it like $700, $750. Usually for that, I'm looking to make back profit somewhere around like $4,000. That would be like a really good batch. Not so good batch would be at 3. An amazing batch if you got like a ton of high-end stuff or like a ton of media, you could be looking at like $6-7 grand.
Okay, and now are we talking about one pallet, or are you talking about multiple pallets? Like how many pallets?
All 12.
Okay, and so how long will it take?
Well, I'm looking really to 4 or 5 times my money. That's how I look at it.
So, and how long will it take you to process? If you get 12 pallets of merchandise shows up at your door, how long does it typically take you to process that?
It used to take a whole week, but now I have a helper and we do it in 2 days. And
okay, awesome.
I mean, the lister, I mean, I guess they're taking about a day to do it, but like I'm not. So we can get through it in about 2 days, and then I'll do the eBay myself.
Okay, cool. We're on a live chat, so let me say hello to a few people in the chat real quick. We got Videos. I don't know if I pronounced your name properly. It says daily habits are incredibly powerful. I'm definitely working on that right now. Awesome. And I wanted to say hey to eBliss Reseller Solutions. Says, hey, Jeff and John, I appreciate the YouTube live. Dave and Lori. Hey, thank you guys for stopping by and hanging out. We appreciate you. So, John, talk to me a little bit because I want to kind of hit the rewind button real quick. Talk to me a little bit about what was your life previously before you became a full-time reseller? Like, what were you doing? Because I can tell by talking to you that in another world, another life, you were like college educated. You didn't like tell your parents like, yeah, I'm going to graduate high school and I'm going to go to college and I'm going to be selling books and media on eBay and Amazon. So kind of tell me like a little bit of your backstory of what happened, how you got started, like what was your like career, what was your in a previous life, what was it that you were up to before you became a full-time reseller?
Sure. So I did go to college for 4 years. I studied marketing. So marketing and public relations. I worked in probably like 10 years, like doing like PR agencies, marketing agencies. And then I moved to Pennsylvania probably 5 years ago now. And I kind of just wanted like a fresh start. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I got a job as a copywriter. I did that for about 2 or 3 years before I went full time. But what really started is when I got that copywriting job, we made an agreement. So like basically they were like, we're going to pay you X, but if you do a good job, we'll give you another $5,000.
Yeah.
And like after 3 months, I'm like, okay, fine, like no problem. So like we do it, and like I got the $5,000, and then at the end of the year when it came time to a raise, they're like, no, like we already gave you a raise. I was like, no, like that was like part of like our original deal. So right then and there, I was like, I can't have like someone else like controlling, like I don't know, it just like clicked for me. I was like, I just can't do this anymore. Like I want to be in control of how much I can make or don't make or whatever, be fully responsible. Yeah. So then I saw a video about Gary Vee, and he was going to yard sales, and I was like, I'm going to try this. Like, I'm just going to try it. Like, so I started with furniture. So I buy like tables and chairs on like Craigslist for like $50 and then flip them on Facebook Marketplace for like $200. Like I was making like a ton of profit on this. Right. And I just kept doing it for a year, and then came across Reezy Resell's channel and saw that he did books. And yeah, I went to a thrift store, I bought some software and scanned a bunch of books. I'm like, there's no way like this is gonna work. Like this seems like the biggest scam ever. But like right. I went through, and like sure enough, like 2 weeks later, the book started to sell, and then like I just jumped right in. And a year later, yeah, I quit my full-time job.
So, okay, and how long were you kind of doing your side hustle of reselling on the side before you got to the point where you're ready to leave your full-time job? So kind of talk to me about how that process is, because there may be somebody that's in a similar situation where they're at a job maybe they don't like, or maybe their ceiling is capped, where they're like, hey, you've come as far as you can go down this road, and they want to expand. So kind of talk to me a little bit about how that process went for you.
So yeah, I feel I should probably make a whole YouTube video about this, but basically I was very cautious about it. Like it wasn't like, oh, I think this is going well. Like I think I could double it if I went. It was like, no, like I had 6 months like saved up if I made no money. Like I was good to go for 6 months. Basically my sales were pretty much exactly like what I needed to live at that point. And I had that backup like 6 months in reserve. I knew that I assumed that I could probably double sales if I did go full time, just based on doing it for a year. Like you just see, habits and patterns. And I was getting into bulk, so I had to rely less on like going to thrift stores, which was better for me. But one big thing I would say is like, you need to like come to a number. So like one of the biggest ways I was able to do this was, again, like I don't have like tons of expenses. Like I don't spend a crazy amount of money. Like my biggest like probably like thing that I like is like good craft beer. Like that's pretty much like other than that, like I wear Under Armour. Like I'm like just a typical like t-shirt G kind of guy. Like no big deal. So basically I was able to bank like close to $700 or $800 after my paycheck. And that was like a freedom fund. And that was building up to 6 months. And everything I made in the business went back into the business. I didn't take anything out. So it snowballed really quickly, because when you don't take any money out, you just keep reinvesting, it grows really quick. And I know not everyone could do that, but like I would say like you need a reserve. Like I know sometimes like, oh, your back's against it, and like you hear these stories of people just like make it work and you're the next Apple. Like, yeah, that's great, but like for every Apple, there's like 110 schmapples that like didn't make it. And like a great example would be like COVID, right? Like if you quit, like I quit in, it was probably 2 or 3 months, and then COVID hit. But like I wasn't worried because like I had things like going on, and like I had that reserve, and like it was just kind of business as usual. So I think having that peace of mind and like not stressing, like definitely have at least 6 months.
All right, so John, a couple things. I want to ask you a question. If you don't feel comfortable telling us, you don't have to tell us. But at your previous job, how much were they paying you a year when you decided to leave? Was it like around 70, 80,000, 60,000? Like what was the ballpark?
It was like 45 plus like potential for bonus. I mean, yeah, they have like 401k match and stuff like that. But like the company actually wasn't really doing that great at the time. So like some of that stuff wasn't even in play.
So basically in the back of your mind, you're like, hey, I've got 6 months emergency fund set aside. Yeah. At worst case scenario, if all craziness breaks loose, I have my college degree, I have my solid work experience. If everything fails, I can always go back to finding another 9-to-5 job. That's what you were thinking, like worst case scenario, you're going to be okay no matter what, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, me and my girlfriend live together. So, I mean, that's another kind of like safety net, right? Like we split those expenses. And basically, yeah, I kind of looked at it like I'd have some weekends where like I'd find like $2,000 or $3,000 worth of books. I'm like, this is like a month's pay. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, I should just be doing this.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to touch a couple points real quick because John says the same thing that I tell people. You know, you had 6 months of emergency fund set aside. You had very low overhead expenses. Like where I live at here in Florida, my rent's $350 a month. So you have very low overhead expenses, and then you took a lot of your capital and a lot of your money and reinvested it back in your business. You didn't say, hey, it's happy hour at John's bar. Let's go down to the happy hour and spend money at this bar on a Friday night. You were like, let's take this capital and reinvest it back in your business. And at what point were you sitting here looking at the numbers and you're like, man, I think that I can turn this and make way more money as a reseller than what I'm making at my 9-to-5 job? We're like, I think I can turn this into something. At what point did you come over that threshold? Because you've been doing this for probably a couple of years, you know, off and on before you got to that point of you're like, hey, I think I'm ready to just put my 2 weeks notice in and leave my job to be a full-time reseller. Like, how did that work for you?
Yeah, it was just like one of those things that my dad was always an entrepreneur and I always worked for him. And like, I always wanted to do my own thing. And like, just like seeing like almost the possibility. So like, I basically did, this is another good point, which I always forget to mention. So basically, I used all my vacation like in the first 6 months of the year. So basically, at the beginning of the year, I was like, I'm going to quit. Like, I wanted to do it on my birthday, June 6th. So I was like, you know, these 6 months I'm going to prepare. So what I did was I did 2 like almost week-long vacations. I basically did like test runs. So like, if I was doing this full time, like how would this play out? Like, what would you do? And like each test run went really well. Like every thrift store I went to, like hit it off like really good. Some not, but like for the most part, I was like, wow, if I could do this every week, like I would be good. So I had a very good idea in my head, like from just practicing, knowing what I know, taking a full week out, like kind of like mocking it up, like what could this look like? And having that idea like really made it like I'm very risk averse. Like I wasn't just like, yeah, like I'm gonna make it work. It was more just like, no, like I'm gonna test this twice, like I'm gonna have 6 months saved up, like I'm gonna be good. And so yeah, that's kind of how I looked at it.
So John, do you mind telling our audience how you've been doing since you left your full-time job? Because I want people to know what's possible. Since you left your full-time job and you decided to become a full-time reseller, because you have 2 Amazon stores and an eBay store. So now you become a full-time reseller. What is your gross numbers on an average month that you're doing in sales? Not profit, you just maybe like your gross numbers. And probably what would you think you would be making net of that?
So basically, for books, it's a little different because like you have like textbook season is like insane. Like so, textbook season is probably like double. I would say the average month is anywhere from like one account probably close to like 22,000 dollars, give or take, between both accounts, and then probably like another $2,000 on eBay. So, and then there's buyback money, other side deals. So probably like all in maybe like 25 ish
Right.
right now.
And so you went from making 45,000 a year to $25,000 a month. Is that correct?
Well, I mean that's gross. Like I have a warehouse and whatnot. I would say
Right.
probably on that it's probably, well, I know the Amazon sales and all that stuff, it's about 30% ish, 30 to 40% net, but then I have expenses like employees and stuff like that.
Okay, but still, I mean, what? Let's say I have a calculator right here. Let's say the 25,000 divided by three. That's still $8,000 a month, right? That you actually net after expenses. So you're still way better ahead than you were working
Oh
a
yeah,
full time job, for
100%.
sure, for sure. So we have a question real quick from Terrell Williams. Says, "Hey, eBay addicts, can you ask John? Can I start an Amazon business with $2,500?" So the viewer is saying, "Hey, I have $2,500 in cash. I want to get started in reselling on Amazon. Can they get started with that amount of money? And what advice would you give this person?"
Yeah, I mean that's great. A lot of people don't have anybody to get started. So yeah, anybody you had. I mean, I didn't really like. It sounds like weird. Like so, basically, I started like I had more money, but I committed $100 to like the first flips or whatever, and it just snowballed from there. I didn't put any more in after that. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, you could start with 2,500. I actually, a lot of people say, oh, you don't need anybody to get started. I kind of disagree. Like, you need to get some soft. Like, if you want to take it seriously, I'll get like a cheap. If you're going to do books, I'll get like a cheap Bluetooth scanner. Get something like Skydive Q that's like, I don't know, $44 a month. Maybe like a Dymo printer, and like you'll be good to go if you're going to do books. And then like a listing software like Reseller list. So you're looking maybe like, I don't know, $120 a month. But you could find that in like a thrift store in an hour. So like you'd make all that back. Um, but I would say start with something you know. I mean, you have 2,500 bucks. I would say I wouldn't start with like wholesale or anything like that. You want to start with like retail arbitrage, or basically you want to get a feel for Amazon. You don't want books is a good place to start because it's very cheap. Um, and you can afford to make mistakes. If you buy a book for $1 and like it doesn't take in price, you really spend $1. But if you're spending like $20 an item at Walmart and it doesn't go so well, it's a lot more painful. But I would say invest in the software because that's going to make your life so much easier. And I think a lot of people quit because they don't. Like I was talking to someone the other day who just got started, or maybe it was like a month or two ago, and they were like, "Can you help me like list in Seller Central?" I was like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Oh, like like I didn't even know how to do it." Like, and then like when I was looking how, I was like, "This is crazy!" Like, I don't even. I don't like. I remember doing it. And I was like, I can't believe I stuck with it because it's such a hurdle. But if you have the right stuff, like, and it only costs like $150. So I would say invest in like some tools to help you like make it speedier, and then see if you like it. If you do books and you're like, I kind of like the Amazon idea, but not books, then like you can look at like retail arbitrage or online arbitrage. I mean, there's so much different stuff you could do, or even eBay. I mean, there are full-time eBay sellers, some Poshmark sellers. Like, it doesn't have to be Amazon. I mean, I always like to give people advice. Start with something you know. I always loved books. As a kid growing up, I always liked to read. So I had a pretty good handle on like what is popular, what sells. And I just enjoy books in general. So it was like a perfect fit for me.
Yeah, and so when you're saying as far as software, do you use Inventory Labs at all?
I don't. I have used inventory labs before. And that's what I started with. I use Reseller now. I think Reseller, in my opinion, is better for books. It's a little quicker, and I feel like when you're doing more volume, so when you're using inventory labs, right, like you're scanning one item most likely, and you have like 20 of them. So like speed's not really an issue for that. But when
Uh-huh.
you have like 20 different books, like you want those labels to print like as quick as possible, and like the process to move really quick.
Okay.
I haven't
And
used it in like 2 years, so it could have changed. But
and
I
what about Scout IQ? Like what is the software that you would use to like scan the barcodes to see if they're profitable or not?
yeah, I use Scout IQ. Scout IQ, I definitely highly suggest. Caleb Roth, he's awesome. He's the founder, one of the founders. He's helped me a lot. And those guys are booksellers, so they're like I've been with him in situations where we were like I was helping him scan, and he's there like texting the developer like, "Hey, like this needs to happen. Hey, this isn't working correct." Like they're on it. Like it's hands down the best software I've used.
Yeah, and so the thing is, when you first heard about selling books on Amazon, you yourself were skeptical. So it's not like so
Yeah.
you've been doing this now for a while because if someone is like skeptical about selling on Amazon or selling books or media, what would you tell this person? Because you said when you first heard about it, you were like even skeptical yourself. Like, is this a real thing? Talk about how that worked for you.
So that's kind of actually how the Instagram name came about, like side hustle experiment. Like I'm very big on experimenting. Like, hey, I'm gonna try this week. Hey, I'm gonna try this month. So I was like, you know what? Like, just try it, right? Like, I hate to lose money. I love making money, but I was like, you know what? If you go through this process and you lose $100, and that's the worst that happens, it's not that big a deal. Like you'll make it up somewhere, like you'll figure it out. So I would say just experiment. I mean, a lot of people, I get tons of DMs every day, and I go back and forth with everyone. I try to answer everyone. And like every once in a while, I'll check up with people like, hey, did you get started yet? And they don't. Like I gave them pretty much all the information they need. Like, and they just haven't gotten started. So I would say just get started. Like that's pretty much it. I mean, we all now like there's so many YouTube videos out there. I mean, just to get started, and now like you kind of just make it your own. Like you see what other people are doing, what other people are saying, and then you make it your own. So I would say just
Yeah.
give it a shot and like I don't know, be willing to pivot, try different things. Like you don't have to start with $2,500. Like you just say, you know what, I'm gonna put $100 down, see what happens, and then go from there.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to me that somebody can go to college for 4 or 5, 6 years and spend 80 or $100,000 of student loan debt to get a degree. But then we were like, hey, spend $500 and try reselling on eBay or Amazon
Yeah.
and see if it works for you. And it's like in their mind, I don't know if it's more risk adverse to them to spend $500 than it is to spend 80 or 100 grand in student loan debt, or maybe it's just that they're not self motivated people where they're like, hey, I'm going to try. Worst case scenario, I'm going to be out a couple $100, but I'm at least going to get started and jump in head first and see if this works for me. Because to me, it's like a no-brainer. It's like, okay, one of them, you trade in 5, 6 years of your life, you sit in a boring classroom, you study for hours and hours and hours, you're around a bunch of people that you don't like, you're in a classroom doing stuff you don't want to do, and your reward is to get 80 or $100,000. That's your reward. Whereas if you start reselling, you spend a couple $100 and it's like you're making money instantly. You're not having to wait some far off, half a decade in the future of possibly maybe landing a halfway decent job to pay back that student loan debt. So anyways, that's my rant for the day. I'm going to let that go. So let's say hello to a few people. We have Hyphen Gold is in the chat. Kelly Reseller Louise is here. The Flippin' Sports guy is here. I wanted to check on the question real quick from eBliss Reseller Solutions. He wants to know, how big is your warehouse? What is the location of it, and what is the monthly expenses? We talked about that briefly before we went live. Can you talk a little bit about the process of you finding a warehouse? Because you said when you were looking for one, people were telling you that what you were looking for was you weren't going to find it. So talk a little bit about how did you go about finding a warehouse? What made you decide to get this warehouse? How big is it? Like, what's the square footage of your warehouse? Where is it located at? What's the expenses? Can you talk a little bit about that real quick?
Yeah, sure. So I decided to get a warehouse because it was the next logical step. Basically, I was working out of two 10 by 30 storage units. Logistically, it was just very hard to do bulk, coordinate deliveries in and out, have sufficient space for eBay, have sufficient space to like do local deals. Um, so I knew I wanted to get a warehouse. The warehouse I currently have now is 3,400 square feet. It's located in Pennsylvania. The rent is $2,200 and plus electric and Wi-Fi and stuff like that. Finding a warehouse was definitely, I thought it'd be like finding an apartment. Like you just go online, you see all this stuff, you go look, and then you're like, yeah, like sign me up. But when you're looking at for commercial space, especially now with all people in e-commerce, it's really hard to find a small space. Like I found this space on Craigslist. Like I couldn't believe that it was posted there. Like it was kind of a shot in the dark. I was super frustrated. I was working with maybe like 5 or 6 real estate agents at the time. And yeah, they kept saying, oh, here's 5,000 square feet, here's 6,000. And like I was almost tempted to get like a 5,000 square foot space with a dock and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, it just didn't feel right. And I was close on one of the properties. And then I was just like, no, like it just doesn't feel right. And then 2 days later, I came across this one, walked in and saw it. And I was like, wow, this is it. Like, this is definitely it. I would definitely say like see 5 to 10 places because like right off the bat, you're going to be like, and take notes. I had like a sheet. I'd be like the address. I'd be like, oh, I like this. It has a dock. It doesn't have this. I would take my camera and take like a video of the whole space. This way I had it like as a reference so I could just look back on it. And then I just like could make notes. And definitely reach out to people further along than you, like people who have warehouses. Like I did talk to like some other people. I was like, hey, like, you think this is a big deal? And they're like, oh my God, yeah, like you don't want to do that. Like, so like talk to people like ahead of you. There's really not much that I found anyway online about it. Yeah, just be careful of all the costs. Like a lot of times they say $5 a square foot, but that doesn't account for like what they call a CAM charge. And that's like what the management charges you to like cut the grass and all that other stuff. So you're really looking at like $8. And some of the landlords make you pay taxes. So now that $5 is like $9 or $10. So definitely clarify that with the agent to make sure you know what your all-in cost is.
Yeah, eBliss Reseller Solution says 3K square foot warehouse is a rare to find. Awesome job finding it. The lease terms are also challenging. So yeah, so did you sign like a 6-month lease or a year lease, or how did that work?
I signed a year lease. When I was looking at the other warehouses, you need a minimum of like 3 years, and you were locked in. And that was the big fear, was that like if I got locked in and wanted to expand, I wouldn't be able to. But like with some real estate agents, if you work within like, let's say like Ebayaddicts Realty, they have like 100 properties. So a lot of times if I'm in like a 3,000 square foot property, you'd be like, oh, if you want to move into a 6,000 square foot property and it's mine, yeah, sure, like go ahead, we'll upgrade you, like we won't lock you in. So that was one of them. But I ended up finding this property and it's owned by the owner, but he has another 5 bay doors right next to mine, and he owns those. So like if I do need more space, he's like, you could have those as well. So it worked out. I got like extremely lucky.
Okay, cool. I wanted to say hey to a few people in the chat. I wanted to say hey to Resell Dojo, the flipping sports guy, the flipping accountant is here hanging out with us. I wanted to say hey to Cali Reseller Louise. Topher is here in the chat, and we had Terrell Williams is here. And so I wanted to talk real quick about having this warehouse space. What is it like for you when you hired your first employee, and how has it been for you, like being like a one-man band? Like, what does your typical day look like for you? Because, you know, running this resale business, like being self-employed.
So basically when I first got here, like I've always been like a hard worker, like always up early, willing to stay late. So typically right now, like I'm still figuring stuff out. I usually typically get here around like 6:30 in the morning, kind of get like anything shipped out, check my eBay metrics, check Amazon, make sure there are no like crazy issues going on. And then basically the helper gets here around like 8 o'clock. I'll usually do like something I need to get done more important than like just scanning books. And then when he gets here, we'll scan books together. Eventually, the goal is they will scan the books by themselves. But yeah, then I'm out of here by like 5:36. I go home, have dinner, kind of relax a little bit, and then probably maybe work like another hour or two, just kind of like set it up the next day. Like, I don't know, doing YouTube, doing Instagram, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's an impact day, but like I love doing it. So like I don't really feel that it's work. Like I would probably stay here. Like if I could work like 24 hours a day, I probably would. Like I just enjoy doing it. And obviously, like eventually, like the ultimate will be like I don't have to be here. And it would be an option whether I wanted to work or not. But right now it's like when you first start, I think that's a lot of what's missed in reselling. It's like how long it actually takes. Like all you see on YouTube is like the $3,000 haul or that turned into $40,000. It's like, yeah, but like it took them like a couple days to find that, like a long time to process that. Like there's just a lot that goes into it.
So John, let me ask you a personal question. Do you work 5 days a week, 7 days a week? Like how many days a week do you usually work?
I would say 6.
Really? Yeah. Because I usually
Saturday's kind of like a lax day. Saturday's like kind of a catch up, overage. Yeah, so probably like 5.5.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying because I usually work 7 days a week, and then when I get messages and emails from people when they're like, "Well, I work part-time hours and I didn't make nowhere near as amount of money you did," I'm like, I don't think you comprehend. When I told you that I work 7 days a week, there's literally 7 days in a week that I actually work. So if you're not working every day that ends in Y, you're not going to have the same results, you know. So it's like they some of these people want to do like the bare minimum amount of work, and then they want the maximum amount of profit. And I'm like, it doesn't really work that way. You have to like expend this much energy to get this much profit, not this much energy and expect this much profit. It just, to me, in my mind, it just doesn't work out.
I totally agree with you there.
Yeah, we have Hyphen Gold. He says, "What do you like selling the most?" So he might have came in late. You mainly sell books and you sell media, correct?
I do, yeah. I sell mainly books and media. So how I view it is, so like with books and media, basically I write off the buy cost of the books and media. So anything I sell on eBay, I view as almost like extra money because that's not guaranteed to sell. So I kind of like selling that stuff because it's like, wow, like this would have went to like my dud guy and like I was able to turn this into money. Like this is awesome. And I love working with, I think that's one of my biggest advantages over other people. I have a lot of buyers of stuff that's not sellable on Amazon. So like someone was just here the other day. I made a video about it yesterday. They bought $760 in kids' books that are worthless on Amazon, eBay, all these places. And that pays for a whole load of Gaylords. And like that would have been trash. So it's really squeezing as much as you can out of everything.
Okay, so John, what is your goals in the future? I don't want to say like what is your trajectory of a 5-year plan because you never know. It may have another lockdown or some crazy virus or something out of left field that you don't expect. But like, what do you see yourself doing like in the future? Like maybe in the next 2 to 3, 4, 5 years in the future? Because you're a young guy. So how old are you, John?
34. Yeah, 34.
Yeah, so you're still a young guy. So like, what do you envision seeing yourself when you're like 40 years old? Like, you still going to be working in this warehouse? Are you going to hire more employees? Are you going to try to scale your business? Like, what is your thoughts? Like, what is your plans or goals that you have for yourself in the future? Because you have a YouTube channel now. You're doing your reselling gig full time. Well, talk a little bit about what are some of your other projects you have in the future that you have coming up for you.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, I definitely want to. I don't think I ever want to have like the biggest Amazon business ever. Like, that's not what I want. I basically want the whole Amazon business to be automated, um, and to have employees and kind of like just kind of oversee it, where I could like travel or go wherever, and like everything still runs without me. That's probably the ultimate goal. Um, and I do really enjoy the YouTube and like doing like writing and online marketing. Like that's kind of what I've always loved. I love business. So I definitely see like definitely working more on the YouTube channel, like doing more things like this. I really enjoy doing this. And yeah, just like I don't know, kind of whatever, like just be able to do whatever I want. I think that's kind of like the ultimate goal. And this business could definitely get me there. I don't know if I necessarily want like a warehouse like twice the size of this or whatnot, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It'd be interesting. I mean, Amazon's changing all the time. I'm also looking into like diversifying from books. I started doing a little OA, online arbitrage. I've done a little of that like during when the pandemic first started, but I think
Hmm.
there's an opportunity there, a big opportunity to be selling, to have stuff in your inventory that people are like, no one needs like a book, but like everyone needs like toothpaste, deodorant, shampoo, like stuff like that. I mean, I think there's a huge opportunity for it, especially now. Like people are used to shopping on Amazon now because of the COVID. So I mean, I think a lot more people will continue to shop online. I mean,
Yeah.
look at
So
the
if
items.
if you guys are coming in late, Sam says just got off from work and catching it. So if you guys are coming in late, we're talking with John from Side Hustle Experiment, and his business model is he buys big wholesale lots of merchandise, pallets of merchandise. He buys them at wholesale prices, then he chops them up, sells them off individually, and then he makes profit. And mostly you sell on to Amazon and eBay. So I have a similar business model. Like, I'll buy a whole big lot of merchandise. Like I don't know, last week or something, I bought like maybe 400 to 500 DVDs new into shrink wrap for like $97. So if I could just get if I could just get $10 a piece, let's say times 400 DVDs, you should be able to turn your initial investment of $97 into like $4,000 worth of merchandise. And John is similar with his business model. Is you'll go and spend maybe $750 for 12 big pallets of merchandise. Then you'll chop these pallets up, see what's profitable, what's good, what's not. The stuff that's junk goes into the dud pile, and the stuff that's good he'll resell. And so you'll turn your initial investment of 750 into like maybe what, 5-6 grand maybe. What do you think that you typically would make off of these 12 pallets? Because I would think you'd make at least $500 a pallet. You would have to, right?
Yeah, I feel like so with Gaylords, like that's the hard part. Like sometimes like you get really good ones and other times you get bad ones. And like, yeah, so I would say average, yeah, I'm looking to like 6 or 7x my initial investment.
Okay.
So yeah. Like a lot
So
of
John,
times people don't understand, and I will say this, like a lot of people want to get into bulk books. I always suggest doing like thrifting, like for a good bit, because like you want to learn exactly how to do it. But a lot of people buy like one or two Gaylords, and that's almost like the worst thing you could do because in a batch of 12 Gaylords, I would say two or three are like amazing, two or three are really bad, and the rest are just kind of in between. And that's just like how it goes. Like that's like the law of averages. And like, someone could just like donate a bunch of books that are valuable, not valuable, and like they tend to have a lot of those. Or like you get really good stuff. So it's really hard to judge a source based on one Gaylord. And then logistically, it doesn't even work because like you have to rent a truck, you need a place to process. There's just a lot. Like I suggest buying at least 6 to 8 if you really want to test it, and make sure it's not like your last $1,000. Like save up and like be ready because like when you spend like this $750, like it doesn't. I have employees that doesn't come back tomorrow. That comes back like 3 months from now, 4 months from now, 6 months from now. So like by the time it
yeah.
all sells through, it takes a while. So you have to have some capital.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was going to ask you like what would be your top 3 or 4 tips that you would have somebody if they wanted to get started in reselling on eBay and Amazon? Like, what would be your top 3 tips that you would have to get somebody?
I would say start with one. I would say I started with Amazon and didn't really start with eBay. I really started with eBay during COVID because one of my suppliers said they couldn't deliver anymore. And I stuck with all these books. I was like, like what can I do with all these books? And I had extra time. And I was like, oh, maybe I can lot them up on eBay. And then I like started to figure it out. And then once the suppliers started working, and I was like, this is a nice like chunk of business. Like I got to keep doing this. So I would say start with one. I would say number 2, start with a product you know. I mean, books are a great place to start always because they're cheap. They're not that expensive. But if you know video games, like you're gonna know like what's underpriced on Facebook Marketplace, what's underpriced on eBay, or if you know clothing. I mean, clothing is insane. Like, you go to like a thrift store, like everything's. Well, I know it's pretty pricey now, but if you have a good eye for like certain designers, like you could plop something up for $9 and sells for $100. So I would say go with like your strength, what you know. A third tip would be like invest in the business, like get software, I mean, if you're doing eBay, you don't really need any software. I mean, as long as you have like an iPhone that you could take cameras and like computer upload.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're going to get into Amazon, definitely get like a cheap Bluetooth scanner, get some scanning software. If you're doing books, I would definitely look into Scout IQ. I don't really know of any retail arbitrage scanning software that you could use off the top of my head. That, and then I think 4, like, invest as much time as possible. I once heard, I don't know if you're familiar with Watch Me Amazon.
Yeah, I'm subscribed to his channel. I haven't talked to him in person, but I'm a subscriber of his channel.
I remember him saying like a year or 2 ago, he was just like, suck everything out of this because it's only going to get harder. Like, spend as much time as you possibly can. I'm not saying like work so you're not hanging out. Like, no, like you got to do what's best for you. But like, more people are going to come. He's like, suck as much as you can up right now and like do all that you can because like you're going to look back and like, I mean, I wish I maybe like went to more stores or like did more of that, but like make the most of it. Just try to get everything out of it you can.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's going to be more competition, but to me, my biggest thing is you just have to reinvest your money back into your business because it's like, if you turn $100 into $1,000, but then you take that $1,000 to go on vacation, you're right back where you started from before. So you have to reinvest your capital back into your business. So let me say hello to a few people. We have Sam Fresco is in the chat. Carolina Thrifter Casey is here. He says, "Hey Jeff, what's up, everybody?" Wanted to say hey to Hyphen Gold was here in the chat. Ebliss Reseller Solutions. Steve from Resell Dojo. The Flippin' Sports Guy was here. Cali Reseller Louise and the Flippin' Accountant. So, anyways, man, we've had you on the stream here for about an hour. Casey says, "Hey man, Jeff, don't spend that money." Yeah, that's the thing is I think people get in this mindset where they're like, "Hey, I made $500 or $1,000," and then they still get in this consumer mindset where they're like, "Hey, I need to go buy these $200 pair of Jordans, or I want to go on this trip or this vacation." And I'm like, no, the beach is not going to go anywhere. You can take that capital, reinvest it to buy more merchandise. It's not going to get up and run away. But anyways, John, so tell everybody, first of all, tell everybody where they can find you at on YouTube and Instagram so they can go by and check you out.
Cool. You can find me at Side Hustle Experiment on Instagram and also Side Hustle Experiment on YouTube. I think you have it linked down below too to the YouTube. I just started. I'm always looking for feedback, new ideas. So feel free to shoot me a DM if you want me to cover something or have any questions. I'm always happy to answer them.
Okay, awesome. Now, give me your final thoughts and we'll let you go. And we greatly appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us today. I would say my final thoughts is reselling. Actually, as you were saying, like, you can't just like take the capital out. Like, I would say go on vacation. Or like, I'm not saying that's bad, but like reselling is definitely a momentum game. Like, you just can't go to the thrift store once a week. Like, I was going every day on my lunch breaks, on the weekends. Like,
it takes a while to build up. Like, it's not just like, it's hard to actually demonstrate, right? Like how much work goes into it, but it's definitely a momentum game. I mean, I say try to do at least one thing every day to move your business forward. Whether it's like learning something, getting a piece of software. I know some days are busier than more, but like if you could just do one tiny thing to like push it forward, like I would say that's probably the best thing you can do.
Yeah, just make a little bit of progress. I was just sitting here today looking at like, hey, I need to get like a new like little L-shaped desk, or I need to get like just little stuff that you don't think about, because I do most of mine mobile on my phone, and so I'm just like, hey, maybe I need to get a desk, maybe I need to get a chair, maybe I need to have just like regular stuff, you know. So yeah, that's definitely a great advice, man. Just make a little bit of progress every week towards your business. So anyways, John, thank you for coming on and hanging out with us today. We've had you on the show for an hour, and hopefully we'll have you on again sometime in the future, and we'll sit down and catch up, and you can tell us, hopefully you'll tell us, hey, my business is way up here now and I had 2 employees instead of 1, you know. So hopefully we'll be able to catch you in the future, man.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. Thanks everybody in the chat for hanging out, and go follow my guy right here. John, go follow him. His links are down below for YouTube and Instagram, and you can tell him that Jeff sent you. You guys have a great day. I will see you tomorrow. I'm trying to think. I think Sarah Stiles will be here tomorrow on Wednesday, and she'll tell you how she makes $2,000 a week working part-time in her reselling business. So I will see you tomorrow. You guys have a great day. Bye, everybody.
Okay, well, guys.
Bye.